All right, so let's talk about defensive ends, guys. We have a question in the chat that I want to get to here from Xander. Did Ari Watford come to any camps? Was he there? And then from there, if not, Fitz, who stood out to you at the defensive end, defensive tackle position?
Ari was a no-show. There was some talk that he was there but not competing. I didn't see him personally.
His
But
coach told me he came to do measurements but didn't work out. That's what his
okay,
coach
yeah,
said. I never saw him though.
compete. Yeah, so he does exist. He did visit Penn State a few weeks ago, but yeah, he was not working out. So we'll just check that one off the board. I like to take the easy ones where I know the answer to. So no Ari Watford this weekend.
Okay. So one guy, and this is purely I was not there, but somebody who I've been impressed with, and I thought was a great positional player for Penn State that surprised me. I think maybe in the wrong way here in this photo is Xavier Gilliam, defensive tackle prospect for Penn State. Did he look as small in person, Ryan, as he does here in this photo? Because that's a bit surprising seeing him here, expecting him to be 270 at this point. He looks very going the other way from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we have him at 6'2", 260 on his profile. It certainly looked like he may have, lost a little bit of weight, maybe closer to 250 now. I thought Xavier Gilliam moved really well in individual drills. He worked out as a defensive end, and Penn State certainly looks at him more as an interior guy. And so I don't take a ton of O-line, D-line stock out of what we saw yesterday. I mean, he was fine rushing off the edge, but I mean, again, we're trying to see what he's like against guards and not tackles. So, certainly I think from a weight perspective needs to get a little bit bigger if he wants to be an interior guy. But again, this is a position where Penn State's going to take a lot of guys, or they want to take a lot of guys. It's kind of like wide receiver. I could see 3-4 defensive tackles if they're able to get quality defensive tackles. So, when I look at, again, like just comparing him to DeAndre Cook yesterday, Cook has more of that size. I thought performed a little bit better than Gilliam too. So somebody that kind of moved up a little bit. I don't want to say Gilliam moved down. I just don't think I got a lot out of O-line, D-line, because again, he was working out more as a defensive end. But has official visits at the Penn State for, I believe it's that first weekend, if not the second, one of those two, and remains a guy that I think very well could end up at Penn State. But I was just hoping to get a little bit more out of that. I mean, the biggest takeaway, was his size, and it was smaller than what I thought he'd be. So, but certainly moved well. I thought from they do this one drill where you have like that hip bend, you go around the little hula hoop kind of thing. He was certainly one of the most impressive guys there, and that's good. That's great to see. But there's other drills too where it just was hard to take much away from if you're going to work out as a defensive end.
Yeah, it's just his frame, like, looking at the broadness of his shoulders and everything was just a little more compact than I was expecting based on what he looked like on film. Was there anybody on the other side where you mentioned Cook a little bit earlier, Fitz? Were there any other guys that stood out to you in terms of, okay, that's a guy that Penn State can target in their defensive tackle class, which right now they don't have any, so the board is wide open for them to anyone maybe kind of open your eyes from what you saw?
Yeah, I think Cook was the guy that you would circle in that he's got room to put that weight on. So that was good. And he did play on the interior, did a nice job on the interior. I put up a rep on my Twitter yesterday. It went pretty well for him on that one. There's a couple of guys there. I mean, Jasir Whittington was there. He's a couple inches away from being a top prospect, but unfortunately that's like we talked about with the quarterbacks. You gotta mention it. Same with Emmett Laws. Herb Gray's an interesting one. I think Penn State offered him this winter, the defensive tackle from Maryland. Good looking kid. I probably not as fluid as Cook, but he's got that body to work with. So that was nice to see. It was a group, to be honest with you, it was a good group of defensive linemen. I expected more. I expected them to do better. The offensive line group I thought would get cooked. They did not. They actually held up pretty well. So I was more impressed with the offensive line. Bryce Jenkins, by the way, 2025 Bryce Jenkins from DC Friendship Collegiate, absolutely massive. I mean, that kid looks like that. It would not take long for him to adjust to an NFL locker room. I mean, he's 6'5", 295, 300. Huge hands, huge arms, huge. He's really big. I mean, he's got some work to do to grow into his body and to figure out that coordination. But if he does, man, he's got something working. Penn State was one of the first to offer him. They had him on campus for a visit a couple of I believe it was in March, in late March, but that's definitely one to file away. Bryce Jenkins in the 2025 class is absolutely massive and really, really good looking prospect.
T. Frank, let me jump in here real quick. I mean, the
Sure.
guys, the stars of the D end were the defensive ends. Zahir Mathis, Cortez Harris, who, by the way, Penn State has not offered Cortez Harris yet. They're going to offer him. I feel like that. He's a 2025 prospect for DeMatha. He was the D-line MVP yesterday. Certainly grabbed my attention. I was looking, watching him perform. I'm like, man, Penn State hasn't offered a kid from DeMatha who's, performing pretty well. So we'll see how, if that changes. I mean, I expect Cortez Harris. He's all right. I mean, 1-3 has him at number 57 in the country right now. And the 1-300 is about to come out again too. And he's going to be a highly ranked guy. So that's an offer I would expect to come. And then Zahir Mathis, man, at Imhotep, I mean, absolutely. To me, he was the best guy there. He earned a future 50 invite. He's got everything. 6'5", 230, frame's great, moves great. I mean, this is right now he's at number 50, 60-ish range in the 1-300. Certainly, I think that's a fair rating, and I think he's a potential 5-star guy if he continues to develop. He was limited this year. I don't believe he played the full season. I thought there was an injury at one point during the season, so I don't know how much film's out there. I'd have to evaluate things more, but especially if he puts on a little more weight, more muscle. There's a lot to like about his frame. So to me, it was the defensive ends who stood out, which is why I had a hard time comparing Gilliam, because I'm comparing Gilliam to Zahir Mathis as a DN. Yeah. It just doesn't add up. So, but I thought the DN certainly stood out. And then again, just if you look at Penn State's defensive line board right now, and the official visits are bringing him, Nigel Smith from Texas. You had David Polypoly, of course, from PA. You got Benedict Ume in there. You got Xavier Porter. I mean, they're casting a very wide net, and a lot of these guys aren't really from this area. I mean, of course, Benedict Ume is from Toronto originally. Oh, you have Brian Robinson too. I guess he's a DN, but I still kind of think he's going to grow into a defensive, potentially could be an interior guy, depending on how he wants to develop and if he wants to put on the weight. But yeah. I actually was really impressed with the offensive line group. I thought Kyle Altuner, the whole problem with Kyle is if he was 2 inches taller and maybe another 30 pounds, I think Kyle Altuner would be a guy Penn State's all over. They're really trying to get bigger in size wise, and Kyle doesn't really fit that. But fundamentally, moves really well. I was really impressed with him. How about Ryan Howerton, Sean, a guy who's visited before? Wouldn't be surprised if Penn State brings him back for a camp this year to keep an eye on. I mean, they definitely want another offensive tackle. The problem that there too, though, is they got a bunch of offensive tackle visits lined up, and certainly want to lock 1 or 2 of those guys down before dipping into the pool of players we saw yesterday.